Okay, first things first, I'm going to open up my sample file. And essentially what we're going to have is get rid of these pop-ups here. A mesh. This is a mesh that was brought in from a different program. Ultimately, in order to start your render setup, you should have a 3D model or scene that's completed. Already has any materials and shaders that are required for that object to look the way it's supposed to, all in place, and that would draw from all of your 3D modeling knowledge that you've already gained in your other courses. In this case, the one thing I will just quickly touch on in this first little video is material assignment using Maya in a situation where you may have brought the mesh in from another piece of software. And again, in this case, this model came from 3D Studio Max. Ultimately, we're going to be using Arnold in this situation, so we're going to assign Arnold materials to all of the different elements of the vehicle. I've already taken care of all of them ultimately, except for the body of the car itself, or the chassis. There's a few ways you can set this up. Now in this case, because of the way the model was set up in Max, even though it actually is built of multiple pieces and because of that multiple materials, it's been grouped together, or not even grouped, sorry, combined together so that it's actually one object upon selection, which makes it much easier to work with from a compositing standpoint in this tutorial anyway. Now ultimately you might want to break that down into chassis, wheels, wings, engine. It really depends on how much control you want in the end as far as compositing goes and your post-production workflow. Again, for the sake of simplicity right now, I've kept it as one object. Now where that does play against us is in regards to how we assign materials. If I just select a material and assign it to this object, it will override everything. So and I'll just do that as a quick example. So if I right click on the object, assign a new material, choose the Arnold standard or AI standard Arnold material, you can see what that does is it applies the same material to the entire mesh, overriding the tires, the wheels, all the other textures that were in play. So I don't want that to happen. I want to make sure that they retain their current material or material IDs that were essentially sent over by 3D Studio Max. I'm just going to hit the Z key to undo it a step. So in this case, what I'm going to do is open up my Hypershade, which is this button right up here. And I've already got the material that I need created. I just need to assign it. Now obviously Maya does obey your UV mapping coordinates and all that stuff that you've set up in your other 3D program, as long as you've exported it properly. I've just used a basic FBX export, which is the most logical way to get things back and forth between the Autodesk suite. So what I want to do is change the current material that's assigned with the new one that I've got created. So the one that I've got set here is a Blinn, and this is just representing a material that would have been assigned by 3D Studio Max or whatever the program may have been that it came in. So if I right click on that material, Maya gives you the option to select objects that have that material applied already, and what it'll actually do is select the polygons. As you can see, they've kind of highlighted orange here, that already have that material mapping applied. And what that allows me to do is assign a material now to just the selected polys. So with those polys selected, and again I did that by right clicking on the material that currently is applied, select objects with material. Now I just go to the new material that I've already got set up, right click on it, and I say assign material to selection. It may take a second to update, but once it does, you can see all the other materials that I've set up, or if they stayed the same, and yeah, it only affected the highlighted material. So again, this is all dependent on how it's set up in the program you're coming out from. So in this case, since it was one mesh, everything was combined, I was forced to use the selection, or use the materials as a selection tool to allow me to assign a new material. But yeah, if the mesh was broken up into separate pieces, I could work on those, maybe grab the tires individually, grab the brakes individually. So it really is dependent on how the mesh is configured, so which is ultimately in your hands. But material assignment in Maya is very easy. It's just a matter of creating it and bringing it into the scene. There's a few other ways to assign materials. Just to show you quickly, I'm just going to create a sphere, which will show up at the center of the grid. If I hit the F key, that will focus on that sphere. And yeah, you've got the method I just showed you, where you could just right click on a material and say assign material to selection. Another method is to just middle mouse click and drag from the hypershade to the object in the 3D viewport. So if I go to the Blinn, middle mouse click and drag into the viewport onto the object, drag and drop, there you go. So again, middle mouse click, drag and drop. The other option is on the object itself. If I want to close the hypershade, I can right click on any object in Maya and assign a favorite material, assign an existing material, or assign a new material. So in this case, I'll assign an existing material, and yeah, you can see everything that's in that hypershade that's predefined will show up and is selectable. So if I go back to Blinn 1, for example, there it is. If the material doesn't exist yet, right click, assign new material. Obviously there's a whole library available to you, but for today we're going to stick with Arnold materials. So I go to Arnold, and then yeah, I can create an AI standard and adjust its parameters to meet the needs of the project. So yeah, material assignment in Maya is pretty much very similar to Max. Just got to know where to go to set it up.